Alyssa Bustamante had a difficult childhood and encountered things that no child should. She struggled with anger management and rebelled as a teenager. Her dark past gave rise to unsettling internet writings and a terrifying journal. She eventually carried out a horrifying deed that had a profound impact on her small town. We are going to talk about the specifics of this tragic tale now. Alyssa Bustamante was born on January 28, 1994, and she grew up in California with 3 younger siblings and her parents, Caesar and Michelle. Alyssa was born to Michelle when she was only 15 years old, and her parents were cousins by marriage, so Alyssa came from a dysfunctional family. Crystal meth, a dangerous drug that changes people's personalities, is what Caesar and Michelle were addicted to. Alyssa was raised in an unstable home because her parents put drugs before their welfare. They did not take much care of Alyssa, so she did not have a secure place to live. Eventually, Michelle's parents, Gary and Karen, Alyssa's grandparents, intervened to assist. In order to give the family a stable place to live, they gave them a trailer. In an effort to assist, Alyssa's grandparents, Gary and Karen, sent money for groceries and bills. They made a lot of effort to assist and motivate their daughter Michelle to give up drugs. At first, things improved. Caesar and Michelle became more virtuous and responsible parents. The family appeared to be doing well by the time Alyssa was 6 years old, and Michelle had given birth to twins. But soon after the twins were born, the situation deteriorated as both parents resumed their drug use. The family's situation was made even more difficult when Caesar, who was now back on meth, turned violent and began abusing Michelle physically in front of the kids. Alyssa saw her parents' violent relationship when she was around 6 years old, when her father, Caesar, was detained and given a 10-year prison sentence for attacking her mother, Michelle. With Caesar gone, Michelle struggled as a single parent. Her drug abuse grew more severe, and she was arrested for both drug possession and intoxicated driving. She was having financial problems because she was spending most of her money on drugs. Michelle's life took a turn for the worse, and she gave birth to Emma, who is now Alyssa's half-sister. Alyssa's family's circumstances deteriorated further. Gary and Karen, Alyssa's grandparents, took over once more after the birth of their 4th child, Emma. They were unable to watch their 4 grandchildren suffer in such a way. With Caesar behind bars, they hoped to provide Michelle with the support she needed to get back on her feet and become a good mother. Michelle, regrettably, continued to be fixated on drugs and began dating a drug dealer. Michelle frequently departed from home, leaving her 4 kids alone. At the age of 6 or 7, Alyssa was the eldest and was responsible for looking after her younger siblings. For a few years, this difficult circumstance persisted. When Alyssa was 8 or 9 years old, she became increasingly aware of her mother's troubling behavior. When her mother overdosed on drugs, Alyssa would frequently find herself unconscious on the couch. Alyssa tried her hardest as an 8 or 9-year-old to take care of her siblings and clean the trailer. The grandparents made an effort to assist, but they soon realized that more help was required. After reporting the incident to the authorities, Michelle's 4 children were taken from her and given to their grandparents when Alyssa was 9 years old. The grandparents made the decision to relocate from California to St. Martin's, a small town in Missouri, believing the kids needed a new beginning. In an effort to give the kids a fresh, healthy environment, they moved into a lovely farmhouse with lots of land. Alyssa changed drastically in her behavior after relocating to Missouri. She lost all control over her anger and rage, which she directed towards her grandparents, the same people who had helped and kept her out of danger. Alyssa's constant disobedience and tantrums were her way of expressing her anger, and she blamed them for severing her family. She would yell, scream, throw herself to the ground, and even punch and kick objects when she was in public. Although Alyssa's grandparents knew she had gone through difficult times before turning 7, they were unaware of the specifics because she never talked about them. She also became very suspicious of adults, becoming paranoid and unable to put her trust in anyone. Michelle, Alyssa's mother, returned when she was 13 years old. Thinking that her family was back together, Alyssa was happy. However, Michelle returned to drug use and departed. Knowing her mother would not be present devastated Alyssa. She attempted suicide with Tylenol at the age of 13, but her grandparents discovered her in time. After bringing her to a mental health specialist, they discovered that she may have bipolar disorder as well as depression. At 13, Alyssa received 20 milligrams of Prozac as assistance from her grandparents. Alyssa appeared to be doing well as a teenager in high school, making friends, maintaining good grades, and actively engaging in church activities alongside her grandparents. But beneath the surface, she was having internal struggles. For Alyssa, getting out of bed, going to school, and doing her homework were difficult. Despite appearing happy, she lacked motivation and, as a trigger warning, began cutting herself, leaving hundreds of cuts on her arms. This persisted during her adolescent years, along with adopting a signature mark on her forehead, dark clothing, and lots of eyeliner. Alyssa also embraced the goth subculture. She began dressing differently and changed the music she used to listen to. As social media grew in popularity in 2009, Alyssa signed up for sites like Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter to meet people who had similar interests. She did, however, begin sharing upsetting material online that showed her suffering and melancholy. She discussed self-harm, shared disturbing pictures, and tweeted pictures of her scars. As Alyssa started talking about violence and hurting other people, her actions became more worrisome. At her own birthday celebration, she even mentioned to a friend that she wanted to know what it was like to kill someone. Her friend was disturbed by this statement. As documented in her diary, Alyssa expressed violent thoughts, including wanting to shoot a classmate and burn down a house that contained people. She admitted to having anger management problems and warned that someone might die from her explosions if she kept them bottled up. Alyssa's rage grew, particularly toward her 6-year-old sister, Emma. Alyssa's grandparents sought advice from the doctor, who increased her medication while warning of potential side effects. On October 21, 2009, while Emma and Alyssa were in the front yard, Alyssa unexpectedly suggested inviting their neighbor friend, Elizabeth, to play. Emma went to fetch Elizabeth, a 9-year-old neighbor and friend who lived 4 doors down, not thinking about the consequences. Elizabeth was a lovely and kind 4th grader who adored horses above all other animals. She also liked Taylor Swift and Miley Cyrus, Hannah Montana music. She loved spending time with her mom and all of her family members. Elizabeth was looking forward to performing on stage since she had recently been cast in the school play. Emma knocked on Elizabeth's door at around 5 o'clock on October 21, 2009, inviting her to play outside. Elizabeth's mother, Patty, was worried that it was getting dark, but they persuaded her to let Elizabeth play as long as she returned by 6 o'clock in the evening. With joy, the girls went outside to play, and Patty went about her evening routine, cooking dinner, and watching over Elizabeth's siblings. Emma and Elizabeth played outside for about an hour before parting ways at 6 o'clock. Elizabeth, who was only 4 doors away, ought to have returned home by now. But when she had not come back by 6:30 p.m., Elizabeth's mother, Patty, became very anxious. Patty tried calling Elizabeth because she was worried and knew she was afraid of the dark, but she did not get a response. Thinking Elizabeth might be at Emma's house, Patty went to the Bustamante household. Patty inquired about Elizabeth's whereabouts when Emma and her grandmother answered the door. Emma's grandmother, Karen, was clueless as to Elizabeth's whereabouts. Elizabeth was last seen by Emma, who reported that at 6 o'clock in the evening, they parted ways and Elizabeth headed for her house. Given how close they lived, Patty became even more nervous about this. Without delay, she requested assistance from the police. In the little town of St. Martin's, which had a population of approximately 1,000, the police moved quickly to begin looking for Elizabeth. Almost everyone in town joined the search as soon as word of her disappearance spread. St. Martin's is a tiny town, so people's attention was drawn to the woodland neighborhood nearby, believing Elizabeth might have gone there and been harmed. The police stepped up their efforts, and the FBI became involved as the search went on the following day. Ponds and rivers were inspected by divers, search dogs, and helicopters. Although they questioned local registered sex offenders, there was no proof that Elizabeth had been abducted by any of them. Elizabeth's cell phone was tracked at first, but it died a day later and could not be tracked. With Elizabeth nowhere to be found, the police became increasingly worried over time. Returning to the beginning, they questioned Emma, the 6-year-old who had seen Elizabeth the last time. 6-year-old Emma was questioned by a child counselor, who asked her to recount Elizabeth's disappearance day in detail. Emma said that after playing for about an hour, they parted ways at 6 o'clock, with Elizabeth choosing to walk home. But Emma later disclosed an important detail. Emma continued to play outside after they parted ways, but she stumbled into some bushes and got tangled in the thorns. She cried out for assistance, and to her surprise, Alyssa showed up. After Alyssa assisted her, Emma saw blood on Alyssa's pants. Emma inquired about it, and Alyssa reassured her that it was nothing more than her period and instructed Emma to keep it a secret. Emma revealed in the interview that Elizabeth's initial decision to join them was originally suggested by Alyssa. At one point, Alyssa told Emma to go home, while she and Elizabeth continued to play alone, which was the most concerning revelation. Emma did not see Alyssa again until she fell into the bushes, and Alyssa appeared unexpectedly. Emma was then given the order by Alyssa to keep this information to herself, especially in light of the latest developments. On October 21, 2009, the day Elizabeth vanished, the police started looking into Alyssa Bustamante's activities. Alyssa falsely claimed she was simply being rebellious and hanging out with friends when they found out she had skipped school. Upon entering Alyssa's disorganized room, the police discovered unsettling handwriting and drawings on the walls. One drawing had the name Emma next to a person with slash marks on their arms and head. There was a poem on another wall that said, "I cut to see the blood because I like it," and some of the words were highlighted in what appeared to be blood. In addition, "It was written in blood" was written in large letters across 2 lines. Moreover, Alyssa's diary was discovered by the police, containing unsettling notes indicating her intention to murder someone and set a house on fire. October 21, 2009, the day Elizabeth vanished, had a particularly worrisome entry in the diary. The police were able to decipher 2 words that Alyssa had scrawled out, throat and slit. In an attempt to read what was written beneath the scrawls, the police sent the diary for additional investigation. 2 days after Elizabeth vanished, on October 23, 2009, Alyssa was taken to the police station to be questioned. Throughout the interview, Alyssa pretended to know nothing about Elizabeth's disappearance while being escorted by her grandmother, Karen. Alyssa claimed to have heard Emma pleading for assistance at 6 p.m. while she was in her room. Alyssa went outside to assist Emma after she said she was stuck in some bushes in the ditch area. It was during this that Emma saw blood on Alyssa's pants. Alyssa acknowledged in the interview that the blood was caused by her menstruation. The police told Alyssa about another discovery in the woodland area, but they would not divulge Emma's statements. While looking for Elizabeth, they discovered holes that resembled graves and asked Alyssa about them. Alyssa surprisingly acknowledged that she had dug those holes, saying she had done so out of boredom to bury dead animals. This explanation was satisfactory to the police, but the lab found a hidden entry when they looked through Alyssa's diary. Alyssa wrote, "I just killed someone," in her diary. "I cut their throats, stabbed them, and strangled them. They are no longer alive. Right now, I am not sure how to feel. It was incredible." Alyssa's behavior changed when she was questioned about her diary. At first indifferent, she turned focused. To Alyssa's surprise, the police found the handwritten entry, even though she probably thought it could not be read. During an additional round of interrogation, Alyssa, trying to get away, asserted that Elizabeth's death was an accident, saying she fell in the woods, hit her head, and died, leaving Alyssa with no idea what to do. While Alyssa is being questioned, her grandmother Karen is listening to her confess. Karen, hearing Alyssa falsely claim that she burned Elizabeth's body, bursts into tears. Using the details of the stabbing and throat slitting, detectives continue to probe the diary entry. Eventually, Alyssa acknowledges that she dug the grave prior to Elizabeth's disappearance. Following a series of probing questions, Alyssa saw her grandmother cry and nearly pass out. Seeing her grandmother in such pain overwhelmed Alyssa, who eventually broke down and admitted all the specifics of Elizabeth's case. Alyssa acknowledged enticing Elizabeth into the woods, where she took advantage of her solitude and brutally attacked her with punches, kicks, and slaps. Elizabeth was beaten, and then Alyssa cut her throat, strangled her, and stabbed her 8 times with a knife. Alyssa then dragged Elizabeth to a pit she had previously dug and covered it. Around this same period, Alyssa heard her sister Emma scream for assistance. She then came out of the woods covered in blood, pretending that it was her menstrual period. After that, Alyssa was taken into custody and accused of killing someone. Alyssa spends 2 years in custody, during which time she engages in self-harm, prompting a suicide watch and psychiatric evaluation. Her trial begins in January 2012, at the age of 18. Alyssa initially intends to plead not guilty, but accepts a plea deal that reduces her charge to second-degree murder. She gives an in-depth testimony, calmly and detachedly recounting the terrifying incidents. Thus, Alyssa is sentenced to life in prison for second-degree murder, with the possibility of release after 35 years and an extra 30 years for using a weapon during a criminal act. These terms are to be served consecutively. Alyssa made a fruitless attempt to appeal her sentence. After 15 years, minors who receive life sentences will be eligible for parole, according to a new law that was passed in 2021. The fact that Alyssa might be eligible for parole in 2024 infuriated Elizabeth's family. Alyssa, however, is probably going to spend a significant amount of time behind bars because of an extra charge that carries a 30-year sentence unless it is dropped. It is extremely painful to read Alyssa Bustamante's tragic story. Alyssa grew up in a difficult environment, traumatized by her parents' behavior. It is critical to address issues related to poor parenting, which is often the root cause of many criminal cases. Share your thoughts on this case, and remember to like, share, and comment, or send an email to crimesabroad@outlook.com. If you enjoyed this content, please subscribe for future updates.